Chapter 4. The hallways of Palmaru, usually filled with laughter and lively conversations, echoed with the hurried steps of Léon. His face was contorted with anger and frustration, every fiber of his being burned with indignation over the injustice done to Leah. Professor Roux's decision not to select her for the Olympic Games due to her age and unfinished diploma seemed not only cruel, but devoid of any compassion. Determined to protest, Léon marched firmly toward Albert Dubois' office. He knew that his place at the Olympics was insignificant compared to Leah's. If she couldn't go, neither would he. The door to Dubois' office was slightly ajar, and as he prepared to knock, familiar voices reached him. "Stéphane, you did what was necessary to protect our school," Albert Dubois was saying, his voice heavy with gravity. Léon froze, his fist suspended in the air. Intrigued by the closeness between the two men, he leaned in discreetly to hear better. "I know, Albert," replied Stéphane Roux, his tone filled with sadness. "But sometimes I can't bear making such sacrifices. She deserved it, you know." Léon squinted, trying to understand. He glimpsed the two men through the opening, their serious and tired expressions contrasting with the image of infallible authority they usually projected. "Francis Pardon's manipulations threaten everything we've built," continued Dubois. "If we gave in for Leah, he would find an excuse to revoke all our decisions. We would lose control of the selections, and Pardon would impose his choices." Stéphane Roux nodded, his face marked by fatigue and regret. "Leah deserved it. Léon will blame me," he said softly. Albert Dubois interrupted him. "But you know that for the good of everyone, we must maintain this impartiality. If we deviate from the rules for her, we jeopardize the integrity of the school and everyone who has earned their selection." Léon stepped back, his mind swirling. The reality of the situation hit him with brutal clarity. The professor and the principal didn't make these decisions lightly. Their goal was to protect the school from Pardon's political intrusions, even if it meant making painful sacrifices. He remembered Stéphane Roux's words on the field, the icy firmness of his judgment. It wasn't out of cruelty but necessity. He bore the weight of this decision with a visible heaviness to Léon, a burden he had to shoulder for the greater good. Léon felt a mix of gratitude and guilt. Gratitude towards Albert Dubois and Stéphane Roux for their tireless efforts to protect the integrity of the school, and guilt for having judged their decision so hastily. His desire to give up his selection now seemed selfish and childish. Taking a deep breath, Léon turned around. He needed to talk to Leah, explain what he had discovered, but above all, he had to find the strength to respect these decisions and fight with even more determination to honor their sacrifices. He found his friends on the football field, where Leah stood, looking gloomy, surrounded by Paul and Élodie. Their worry turned to surprise at the sight of Léon, whose face had taken on a resolute expression. "Léon, what's going on?" asked Élodie, her eyes searching for answers in his. Léon stepped towards Leah, taking her hands in his. "Leah, I just realized something important. Professor Roux and the principal don't make these decisions lightly. They do what they think is best to protect our school from the minister and his manipulations." Leah, her eyes filled with tears, nodded slowly. "I understand, Léon, but it's so unfair." "Yes, it's unfair," Léon replied gently. "But we have to respect their decisions. Giving up would only betray their efforts and sacrifices. I promise you, Leah, I will give my all at the Olympics for football, for you, for us, and for Palmaru." Paul and Élodie stepped closer, forming a circle of support around Leah. "We're all with you, Leah," said Paul, his deep voice resonating with sincere conviction. Élodie added, "And your talent will be recognized. You could very well qualify for the Under-20 World Cup selection. It's in September, after you've graduated." Leah, touched by her friend's determination, felt a new strength rising within her. "Thank you," she murmured, a slight smile appearing despite her tears. Léon squeezed Leah's hand tighter. The year-end festivities were in full swing at Palmaru. The students, dressed in their finest, gathered in the grand ballroom, meticulously decorated to celebrate the graduation and the selection of 5 of them for the Paris Olympic Games. Music, laughter, and lively discussions filled the air with a joyful and festive ambiance. Alongside Charlotte, a talented fencer, Léon, Élodie, and Paul were at the center of attention, surrounded by classmates and teachers congratulating them on their selections. Yet amid this euphoria, Damien Malesherbes, the fifth member of the selection, stood apart, observing the celebrations with a melancholic expression. Although he had also earned his place at the Olympics, he couldn't bring himself to rejoice. His thoughts were plagued by doubts and regrets. Minister Francis Pardon, impeccably dressed and wearing his perpetual condescending smile, noticed Damien alone in a corner. He approached him, a satisfied look on his face. "Ah, Damien," began Pardon, his voice honeyed. "Why stay away from the celebration? You should proudly display your selection, especially you who don't have that subtle smell of a quota." Damien merely shrugged, his eyes fixed on the ground. Pardon continued, thinking he was encouraging him. "You know, people won't be fooled. They'll understand that your success isn't due to this school's methods or Albert Dubois's values. It's your raw talent that got you here. Nothing else." Damien remained silent, but a shadow of irritation crossed his face. Pardon went on, oblivious to his discomfort. "Besides, it's not over. Imagine if Elodie and Paul failed to bring back gold medals. What a boon that would be. It would prove the inefficiency of this school, and I could finally reform it properly." These words were the last straw. Damien clenched his fists, his eyes blazing with anger. "I'm not like you," he exploded, his voice echoing in the hall and drawing the attention of several students. Silence fell, all eyes turning to Damien and the minister. Pardon, visibly unsettled, stammered a few inaudible words before hurriedly walking away. Damien, feeling suddenly drained, wondered if he had lost everything, potential friends and a philosophy he no longer wanted to follow. Albert Dubois, who had observed the scene from afar, decided to intervene. He approached the group of young athletes and improvised a family photo for the stars of the day. "Come on, everyone, gather around for a photo of Palmarou's Olympic selection. Damien, join us." Léon, Elodie, Paul, and Damien gathered, standing side by side. Léon, noticing Damien's sheepish look, gave him a warm gesture. "Come on, Damien. It's a celebration. We need to stick together." Damien managed a slight, grateful smile. "You're right. Thank you, Léon." Léon, surprised, raised an amused eyebrow. "But Damien, this is the first time you've called me by my first name." A spontaneous laugh erupted among the group, breaking the tension and giving way to a renewed sense of camaraderie. The photo was taken in a burst of shared joy, capturing a moment of unity and hope. As the celebration continued, Damien felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had taken a step towards reconciliation with himself and his friends. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly part of a team, accepted as a member without having to fight for it. The night wore on, and the music and laughter echoed through the hallways of Palmarou, testifying to the strength of the bonds forged between these young athletes, determined to shine together on the international stage.